What's happening, everybody? There is a lot to get through. Welcome to the first. I typically reserve this show for waiver wire and just other general notes, but feels like there's a lot to get through after this week one, more so than usual. There's a lot of news going on. So, welcome to an episode of Facemask Fantasy, another episode, and thank you for coming in and hanging out. We'll get into everything today. Market report as a result of week one, injury updates, which is significant. Also, we'll talk waivers, and then, of course, any general AMA that anybody has, we will get to that as well. So I will timestamp this stream again for anybody who is catching it late. I'll make sure to keep it as segmented as I possibly can. Of course, AMA being um, a possible roadblock. But we'll try to keep that to a minimum. We'll start with the big stuff off the top, and that is a result of Monday Night Football. And what came from Monday Night Football, the fallout from Monday Night Football. In the 11th hour, essentially, Christian McCaffrey was ruled out. Ruled inactive with a calf and Achilles injuries that he's been nursing. We knew that he's been nursing. But at the last second, essentially, the 49ers rule him out. Jordan Mason, plug and play, has a great game. 49ers win. When the ultimately the team determined that McCaffrey wouldn't play is kind of in question at the moment. And of course, raises concerns about, where is the health at for, your star running back? Because we were all operating under the assumption that, he had returned to practice the final week of the preseason. After the preseason ended, McCaffrey returned to practice. Everything seemed good. Everything seemed like it was all in order as far as his availability for week one. And then in the 11th hour, ahead of Monday Night Football, no less, when it's the only game left on the slate, McCaffrey, the guy who was the consensus 101, is out. And you might have been savvy enough to handcuff Jordan Mason in your draft, but there surely was a fair amount of people who didn't, and then were left in a true scramble last night. Now, as of a couple of hours ago, the report is that Christian McCaffrey is currently tending to Achilles tendonitis. Achilles tendonitis is something that he's nursing. It's vague. It's unclear. What the status is of the 49ers superstar and the consensus 101 in drafts this year. Essentially, Jordan Mason climbs to the top of waivers as a result of this. It's possible that, if you were on it in shallower leagues, Mason was probably available or could have been available on waivers. You were able to IR McCaffrey and pick him up. You were able to IR McCaffrey and pick up Mason. So if that was the case, congratulations, he's an obvious hold. If Jordan Mason is still available on waivers, he becomes the top priority over Isaiah Likely and Tank Bigsby, J.K. Dobbins, some of the other running backs who had strong games. Baker Mayfield, if you need a quarterback. Isaiah Likely, of course. Jordan Mason leapfrogs all of these guys in the waiver priority, given the uncertainty around McCaffrey's health. Like, what an insane sequence of events. So, if Jordan Mason is available on waivers, top priority. If you have McCaffrey, he's, dump all of your fob onto him. Um, and even if you don't, we're at the point where you probably spend 40 to 50% on him. So that's just one injury update. And what's going on, Greg? Good to see you, sir. Hopefully, week one went your way. Hopefully, the results of week one went everybody's way. But week one is weird. If it didn't go your way, that's okay. It's a long season. There's plenty of time to get back on course. There's no need to panic yet. So that's McCaffrey. The other big injury update that comes out of this weekend is Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua. He's going on injured reserve for a minimum of 4 games. Has a PCL sprain. Sounds like a re-aggravation of the knee injury that he picked up in the preseason. So he's going to be shut down for at least a month, at least 4 weeks. And, presumably will be reevaluated week 5. Actually, week 6. Because it's going to be retroactive. He didn't, they're not going to have him on IR ahead of week 1. He played week 1. Week 2 through 5, Puka is out. Cooper Kupp ascends to a top 8 receiver. Stock down a little bit on Matthew Stafford. Stock down on probably the rest of this Rams offense in general. But Cooper Kupp ascends to top 7, top 8 status. He is likely to deliver week winning upside for the next month. So congrats if you have Cooper Kupp. If you have Puka, hopefully you drafted deep at wide receiver. If you're in dire straits, Demarcus Robinson, I guess, is the teammate that you could pick up on waivers who will soak up some of that role. He had 4 catches for 42 yards Sunday night, so he figures to get a full-time role. Other options are, again, a lot of these guys, they could be available depending on the size of your league. But if you lost Puka and you're looking for a replacement at wide receiver, Khalil Shakir is available in about 60% of leagues. Rashid Shaheed caught a long bomb for a score. He's Derek Carr's guy in New Orleans. Jacoby Myers had a decent day. Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks, all these guys had decent days. At least one of those guys is probably available in your league if you need a replacement for Puka Nacua. Out for the next month. Ideally, you have the IR spots to stash him, and you have the wide receiver depth to overcome it. If you don't, the obvious advice becomes clearer. If running back is a strength for you, trade it back for a wide receiver until Puka is able to get right. Some other injuries as a result of the fallout from week 1. Bears rookie wide receiver Rome Odunze, grade 1 knee sprain. Best case scenario, all things considered, he might miss a week or 2, but it's not going to be this is not a long-term absence for Rome Odunze. The preparation right now out of Pittsburgh is that Justin Fields will start week 2 against Denver. We'll see what shakes out there. Outside of George Pickens, it is difficult to trust anybody in that Steelers offense, including Fields. And then a quick peek ahead to Thursday night, and that should do it for just discussing injuries. Both Dolphins' main 2 running backs, Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, were listed as non-participants in practice today. That's the second straight day that they've been listed as having not practiced. If you have Devon Achane, you probably have more wiggle room, or ideally you have more wiggle room if you have Raheem Mostert. But if you have Devon Achane, the time is now to start looking at alternative options for Thursday night. His availability is looking pretty dicey. Wednesday's practice report tomorrow will be crucial to see what his potential availability will be like. And even now, it's not looking good, even if he's able to go. We're talking about somebody that's probably somewhat limited. So again, for injuries, McCaffrey dealing with Achilles tendonitis. It sounds vague. The severity is unknown or unclear at this point. If Jordan Mason is available, especially if you have McCaffrey, all of your fob. If you don't have McCaffrey, but even could still use some running back help, which is most fantasy teams, Jordan Mason is the priority over Isaiah Likely, over some of the other better performances who are likely on waivers at the moment. No pun intended on saying likely a second time. Mason leapfrogs all of them if he's still available. It's probable or possible that the person who has McCaffrey in your league was able to IR him last night and pick up Mason off of waivers. In the event that didn't happen, if Mason is still available, he is the top target for your waiver wire this week. It's just very ambiguous right now what the status is of Christian McCaffrey when we were led to believe that he was fine going into the season. Puka Nacua on IR. Cooper Kupp becomes a top 7 or 8 wide receiver for the next month. Demarcus Robinson looks like next man up for the Rams. If you need a waiver option, a Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, maybe it's possible Tyler Lockett or Brandon Cooks flew under the radar in 10-team leagues, in shallower leagues. Those are your options. Or Mitchell, Mitchell from the Colts. Adonai Mitchell. His I don't know if you guys have seen. Have any of you guys seen this new score? Average separation score that's being tossed around on Twitter. Acronym for it is ASS. Love it. Anyway, Mitchell's ASS score, average separation score, was tops in the league this week. If him and Anthony Richardson had just been a little bit more on target, Mitchell has a massive NFL debut in his back pocket. That didn't necessarily turn out that way, but he was creating space. He was getting open. His prospects look good down the stretch, even when Josh Downs returns. He did an excellent job separating on Sunday. So another deeper option for you if you're down, if you lost Puka and you're looking for options on the waiver wire. And if you have Cooper Kupp, congratulations. He's a top 7 or 8 wide receiver for the next month. And you know that if Cooper Kupp is 100% right and 100% Cooper Kupp, he's got top 3 upside. So congrats if you have Cooper Kupp. Hopefully you're not playing the person who has Cooper Kupp in this upcoming 4-game stretch. Rome Odunze, good news on his injury. It's a best case scenario as far as shouldn't miss too much time. Justin Fields preparing to start. We'll keep an eye on Russell Wilson. And then finally, just a quick look ahead to Thursday night to wrap up injuries. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane for the second straight day listed as non-participants in practice. If you have either one, be prepared as of right now to be without those guys for Thursday night. Wednesday's practice report will be massive for their availability and what it means. That's injuries. I see some questions coming in the chat. So appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out, so I can get to those now, and then we'll talk about some waiver options. You have no. Greg has Love and Ferguson both expected to miss time. If Mayfield is a quarterback option, that would be my guy over Derek Carr. I know Carr had 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. Derek Carr had 3 passing scores on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. Tougher matchup this week. I believe they're playing Dallas. Meanwhile, the Bucs play the Lions. Good defense. Detroit has a good defense, but Baker Mayfield had just the better performance than Carr. He just looked like the better player, and he probably is. Better overall group of receivers to throw the ball to. I feel better about Mayfield for sure as a quarterback replacement for Jordan Love. As far as Ferguson, everybody's gonna be going after Isaiah Likely. So yeah, if you have Jake Ferguson and you need a tight end replacement, or maybe you punted on tight end and just ended up with the wrong tight end, and you're trying to get Isaiah Likely, everybody's going to be gunning for him. The entire league is going to want Isaiah Likely, or at least half of them. I'll say that. I would go, if you have Fob, Greg, I would go 30% on him. I would go probably 30% on Likely, and then maybe 10% on Mayfield. It depends on who else in your league may need one of these guys. Depends on how many how many folks in your league need another quarterback or need another tight end. I would prefer using more of your Fob on Likely, just because there's a decent chance that you could stream quarterbacks a little bit easier. So if you miss on Mayfield, there are other back pocket guys that you could turn to and you could feel okay enough about for a 1-week stream until you sort it out for week 3. Like we're on a case by case basis here. When your starting quarterback or starting tight end goes down, it's like, all right, we're just going to take this 1 week at a time. I'm not looking necessarily for a guy that will, replace the regular starter for 4 weeks straight. I'm just looking for a guy to get me through this week. We'll worry about week 3 when it's time for week 3. So I would, to that point, be a little more aggressive on Likely. And then if you miss on Mayfield, there are going to be other quarterbacks available, generally speaking. So, and then of course, again, it all depends on what the rest of your league needs. Are there 2 or 3 other teams that are desperate for a tight end? Are there 3 or 4 teams desperate for a tight end? Are there 2 or 3 teams desperate for another quarterback? So, weigh those odds as well as far as what you think you need to commit to your waiver wire bids. Oh, and you do have 5. So, yeah. I mean, Likely I would go 30%. Quarterbacks I would maybe go 10 to 15%. I'm just kind of assuming that the quarterback options, there's just more of them. They might not be enticing, but there's more of them. Let's see. A trade target to upgrade it to upgrade the team. Okay, let's see. Hurts at quarterback, so you're good there. Pacheco, Jacobs, Kamara, good. Kupp, Rice, Reed, good. Laporta, good. Yeah, I mean, you have Likely, you have Sutton. If it's a one quarterback league, you don't need Fields. You don't need Fields. I'll tell this to everybody who well, again, I have to always remember this caveat. Your league mates better than I do. So if quarterbacks get hoarded in this league, then so be it. But if they don't, if Will Levis and Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr and Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, I know these aren't great names, some of them, but like a starting quarterback is a starting quarterback. If some of these dudes are available, Aaron Rodgers might even be available. Unlikely because of his name, but even Rodgers might be available. Stafford might be available. Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Will Levis, Baker Mayfield. If those names are available, then Justin Fields can be dropped. He's never going to play over Jalen Hurts. So that's where I'm looking to improve. I would want to add just another running back or wide receiver, whoever your favorite one is on the wire, and I would drop Fields for him. But you got a top three quarterback, good collection of running backs, good collection of wide receivers. Cooper Kupp is going to win you weeks for over the course of this stretch. I would maybe say get another wide receiver, but you should be able to find a decent one on the waiver wire. Like a Khalil Shakir, a Rashid Shaheed. They may not be available, but is Mitchell on the Colts? Is he available? Is Brandon Cooks available? Like Jacoby Myers, is he available? Jerry Jeudy, is he available? He wasn't great, but he caught a touchdown at least. Like Greg Dortch. Is Greg Dortch available? Kyler Murray loves throwing the ball to Greg Dortch. Like that's decent. That's decent depth. That's decent depth. But I think your squad is solid. I wouldn't be looking to. I would just drop Fields for a wide receiver. I wouldn't. I don't think I would look to make any glaring moves to make it in the form of a trade just yet. I think the roster is solid. I see this. I see a start sit question. So start sit questions, we gotta wait, and that goes for any start sit question. We got to see injuries or injury reports. We got to see practice reports. I mean, I don't know what if I don't know the scoring, that makes it also challenging to suggest start sit help. It's just Tuesday is not, unless it involves a Thursday night player. Tuesday is too early to figure out who you're starting for Sunday, and that goes for anybody. Tuesday's a little too early. We need to see practice reports. We need to see what the injury status or designation, if any, is for any of your guys, any of your players. Guys pop up on the injury report out of nowhere all the time. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's not nothing. So we gotta wait on. I can do start sit questions. I can take start sit questions as it pertains to the Thursday game. So if you're between some guys involving the Bills and the Dolphins, I can try to help with that. Sunday start sit. We just gotta wait till the weekend. Yeah, we just gotta wait till the weekend. You never know who might pop up on the injury report. Like J.K. Dobbins had a great week one. What if he gets slapped with the questionable tag and with a limited or even no practice, which might just be rest or maintenance, but we don't know yet. So we got to wait and see. As far as Lamar, I last read that Lamar is going to play week 2. I know that he missed practice for undisclosed reasons. That was 24 hours ago. but like that's not an update for me at this particular moment in time. They play on Sunday. The first update is should be Wednesday. The first actual like practice report should be Wednesday. I don't. Okay, I see he has the questionable tag. Is sore but expected to play. Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson's your quarterback, then that's it. That's it. That's you know. That's the. He's the type of dude where you take that right up to kickoff. If Lamar is in my starting lineup, I don't care what his status is. If he is starting for the Baltimore Ravens, he is starting for your fantasy team. So I'm not worried about him yet. The expectation seems fine. Sore but expected to play. We're good. Lamar's good. No need to worry about it. We'll worry about a QB2 when it comes to Lamar Jackson. I'll worry about a QB2 when I see that he's actually ruled out of the game. That's when I'll worry about it. Until then, he's that type of dude that you keep in your lineup. You just keep in your lineup and hope for the best. You traded Stroud and Singletary for Josh Allen and Michael Pittman. Yeah, probably. Will the veto vultures come out? Yeah, probably. First of all, I don't like playing in leagues that have vetoes. I've been vocal about this in Discord. If anybody in here has joined the Discord, I don't like vetoes. But also to that point, I make sure that I'm playing with people where I don't think these trades are going to go down. I mean, I've seen trades go down where I need to talk to the person and just get where their head is at. And sometimes, it's always genuine. The thought process behind the trade is always like, this is why I did it, and this is like these are the real factual reasons. I've always made sure that I come to that conclusion with anybody in my league when I see a trade that makes me scratch my head, which doesn't happen a lot. And I play in Dynasty, so I see a lot of trades that they would never go down in redraft. They would never happen in redraft because one team is buying and the other team is selling. That would just never go down in redraft. So it would never happen in these league formats. But I want to also trust the league mates that I play with to make the calls that are their own and that they believe in. And if they genuinely believe it and can back up their beliefs with here's the evidence, like they may not be factual statements, but it's just like, this is why I believe in this guy and I'm willing to sell that guy. If you can explain yourself, then okay, fine. But like in those scenarios, then I would need to hear both sides of like, why did you do this deal? That being said, I don't like playing in leagues with veto options. I want people to be able to make their own choices and also like potentially learn from their mistakes. If you make a bad trade, you should look like I would hope you learn from it. And then also just don't make a lopsided trade. If you get away with it, great. If two people can come to an agreement on a deal and player A likes what they're getting and player B likes what they're getting and both can justify it, then the other folks in the league, that's not their business. Like that's what it comes down to for me. As long as it's not glaringly obvious. As long as the trade is not glaringly, obviously lopsided, we all know what something like that would look like. So we need people to be able to justify why they do a deal, and then it's like, all right, fine. I trust that this is your judgment that you believe in, and we'll let it happen. But on paper, it can look poor. I've seen trades go through before where it looked like an awful deal for one side, and it turned out that it didn't matter. So that's the other side of that coin. Like vetoing trades can, in my opinion, can also it's like now you're sticking your nose in someone else's business where if it's not blatantly obvious, then this shouldn't be your concern, you know? So I'm not a fan of vetoes as an option, but if they exist in your league, I will assume that I will assume that on paper people will look at that and veto it if it's something that they are comfortable with and are familiar with doing and are not, they're not afraid to do it. Yeah, I would say they would probably do it for that trade. As far as your waiver priority, if you have Achan, Jeff Wilson should be your waiver claim, especially with if you have something at the back of the waiver order. I always tell people to switch to Fob next year. Switch to Fob for your waiver claims, and then that way everybody's got a fair crack at everybody, no matter what. At least going into the season. But since you don't have Fob, and it's just like reverse draft order or whatever, yeah, if you have Devon Achan, Jeff Wilson should be your claim. Jeff Wilson should be your waiver claim because not only is Achan banged up, but Mostert is as well, and it's possible that neither of them play Thursday night. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're starting Jeff Wilson, but it gives you the option if you actually need it. So, yeah, Jeff Wilson. Again, I got another question about Lamar. We're not worried about don't burn if you have Lamar Jackson, don't burn any waiver claims on a quarterback. Don't burn any. Keep your waiver whether it's Fob or you play in priority based off of reverse order of the draft. Keep all that. Hang on to that. If you have Lamar Jackson, we're not panicking. We're not panicking at quarterback. Let things play out. He's expected to play. I'm not burning a waiver priority on a quarterback when my anchor QB1 is currently on track to play. I will utilize the free agent pool when I have to, if I have to, in regards to Lamar, and I'll do that Sunday morning when I definitively see if he's been ruled out. The expectation is he will play. If you have Lamar Jackson, save your waiver priority. Do not utilize your waiver claim on a QB2 that you might not even play. That is, as of right now, looking likely that you won't have to play. So, no. If you have Lamar Jackson, I know he's on the injury report right now. He's questionable. He's sore. The expectation is he will play. Do not burn a waiver priority of any kind on a quarterback because it's looking likely that you won't even have to use him. That QB2, whoever that would be. It looks like you should, as of right now, be able to keep Lamar in your starting lineup. All those guys are gone. I mean, as far as deeper wide receivers, Greg Dortch is gone. Greg Dortch is off of waivers. I mean, if it's a savvy league, then Greg Dortch is probably already taken. But I don't think he's rostered in more than like 10% of leagues. So kudos if your league is one of the 10%. But I would Greg Dortch has got to be available. If he's not, then yeah, that's a savvy league. But we're picking up, asking, do we pick up Bucky Irving or Tank Bigsby to drop Trey Benson or Blake Corum? I'm not there yet with those guys. I am not there yet with wanting to drop Benson or Corum. Benson predictably had a minimal role, maybe a little bit more unpredictably. Blake Corum did absolutely nothing for the Rams. But, I mean, where did you we got to remember, like, where did we draft these guys? Where did we take a shot on these guys? The 10th round, the 11th round, maybe the 9th round. Um, it could turn out that these guys are not useful for 2024 fantasy and that they are plays for beyond, for 2025 and beyond. But we made the investment this year. For now, we took the shot just a couple of weeks ago. Unless you are in dire straits and need to find a starter, which I don't know we're there yet for Bucky Irving or Tank Bigsby, um, Benson and Corum are not the guys I yet want to drop. If there's another lower tier guy who you drafted even later than those two guys, then we could talk about maybe dropping that player for a guy like Bucky Irving, who could be carving out a role sooner than later. Rachaad White is, I like Rachaad White a lot, but he is not an efficient runner, not on the ground. And Bucky Irving in game one, I know it's one game and, we don't want to overreact too much, but Bucky Irving did look better in that role. Obviously, Rachaad White is still the superior pass catcher from that backfield by far, but Bucky Irving looked pretty solid with his opportunities. So, yeah, if you've got a dude at the end of your bench, not those rookie running backs, though. We just made the investment. We want to hold. We want to wait and see how things go, see how things play out. Benson got a little bit involved. Connor is currently the bell cow for the Cardinals. We'll see how long. How long does he hold up? Does he hold up the entire season? If he does, then hats off to James Conner, because he hasn't done that before. He hasn't ever made it through a full season. He's missed at least 3 games in every season but one of his career. So we're, Trey Benson, we're biding our time. We're waiting. Yes, it was a little disconcerting to see Blake Corum not get any opportunities behind Kyren Williams. It was Ronnie Rivers who was the first man up after Kyren Williams. These developments are not out of the ordinary for the beginning of the NFL season, though, where the team leans on a veteran who might not be great, but right now, week 1 is a little more ready for game action than the rookie who has 0 game action at the NFL level at that point of his career. So, yes, week 1 is an important week to go after waivers, but at the expense of these young rookie backs that we drafted as stashes anyway, I don't want to overreact on them and drop them too soon. This goes for everybody. Anybody who has Blake Corum and is like, fuck this, I'm dropping this guy. He didn't do anything. Or I had Trey Benson, he didn't do anything. And Amari Demercado is like still getting involved behind James Conner. Pump the brakes. I want to pump the brakes. We just invested 10th, 11th round picks in these guys with the intention that they would be stashes. We weren't expecting them to be, a best case scenario is they play well week 1 and we, keep an eye on it. We're still not starting them week 2, but they put themselves on the map. That's the best case scenario. A perfectly fine, normal scenario to play out is that these guys don't do anything yet because they're rookies. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it is an important week 1 or going into week 2 to be paying attention to waivers and to attack waivers, to be aggressive on the waiver wire this week. Week 1 is generally one of the better weeks to be aggressive on the wire, historically speaking. But I do not want to drop rookie stashes yet. It's a little too early for me. Somebody else might say, go for it. Somebody else might say, yeah, drop Trey Benson, drop Blake Corum. They didn't do anything. I don't want to hit the panic button on those guys yet. There has to be somebody else at the end of your bench. Maybe they did a little bit better week 1 than those guys did, but they're still not, you're not even looking at them as potential to like move into the starting lineup because they're still behind multiple guys on your bench, much less your flex spot. that's the type of guy at the end of your bench, like even if they had a decent game, that I would be willing to drop in favor of a Bucky Irving or a Tank Bigsby, who both look like they might have some regular roles in their respective offenses. Who do I like at tight end other than Likely? Tucker Kraft. I feel a little silly having been I've been a Luke Musgrave guy, but he was the second option behind Tucker Kraft as far as Packers tight ends. And I'm not expecting the world for the next month because, it's the Malik Willis show until Jordan Love is able to get healthy. But if you don't get Isaiah Likely and you're looking for a tight end stream, again, it could be pulling teeth over the next couple of weeks with Willis in there instead of Love. But Tucker Kraft was the Packers tight end one week one. It was not Luke Musgrave. He had 2 catches for 37 yards. Not that great, but he played over 95% of the snaps, which was big. So he's more, he would be a stash. This is not a guy that you probably say, yeah, week 2, like let's see what Tucker Kraft can do. Especially if you lost Jake Ferguson or you're between some other, flyers at tight end, you punted at tight end, and you miss out on Likely. I don't know that Tucker Kraft is that guy. But what I do know is based on week 1, he was the Packers tight end one. So Kraft would be the guy, to keep an eye on other than Likely in the tight end department. Other than that, I mean, anybody who drafted Hunter Henry or Ty Conklin, probably dropping those guys. So you could take a shot on one of them, even though they didn't really do that much. But yeah, Tucker Kraft would be the guy that I would be looking at as a deep stash at tight end if that's maybe something that you're looking for. You have Zamir White. Should you go for Dobbins or Jordan Mason? But I mean both. I would put claims in for both. I guess I would go Dobbins first because Dobbins has a. See, this is tough. I guess I would go Dobbins first because I think we can still. Depends on how you want to operate. We could operate as if we think Christian McCaffrey will be okay eventually this season, but the report just came out 2 hours ago that Christian McCaffrey is dealing with Achilles tendonitis. I don't know what that means. I don't know. It's pretty vague. Is he fine this coming week? Does he need a couple weeks more rest? Is he an IR candidate? And is destined to miss potentially a month's more worth of time? I don't know. The 49ers have been ambiguous about his availability and where he is truly at. We were led to believe that he was fine because he returned to practice after that final week of preseason. So either one. You could go Mason. You could go Mason if you want the guy that looks to be in prime position to benefit from a possible Christian McCaffrey absence, and we do not know how long that is going to last right now. Dobbins, on the other hand, figures to be more of a permanent fixture in the Chargers rotation and is potentially the team's RB1, but there could be weeks that swing to Gus Edwards just because that's how committees work. One guy looks great the next 1 week, and then he's second fiddle the next. I'm not saying that that's automatically going to happen with J.K. Dobbins, but this is a lot how committees work. We're still expecting the Chargers backfield to be a committee over the course of most of the season. And I'm sure the Chargers don't want to run J.K. Dobbins into the ground just because he had a really good week 1, given his recent injury history. So maybe it is Mason. Maybe it is Mason who is the priority over Dobbins. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess Mason is. It's possible that this lingers for Christian McCaffrey over the course of the season. Maybe he's back next week and all is well. Maybe he's back week 4. He needed a couple extra weeks, but he's fine. And now you have your overall RB1, the consensus 101 in all one quarterback draft formats. You have him back for the final 75% of the season. Great, all is well. Maybe it's longer than that. Coming off a 400 touch season last year, picked up the calf strain in training camp, and now he's dealing with this Achilles tendonitis. Maybe the writing is on the wall that Christian McCaffrey is possibly looking at an extended absence. Everything's on the table right now because the 49ers have been ambiguous about his availability, and that all came to a head last night, right before Monday night when he was ruled out. So yeah, Jordan, whether you need him or not, Jordan Mason should be the top guy. Jordan Mason should be the top guy on waivers. If you have Christian McCaffrey, I would spend 75% of your FOB on Jordan Mason or the top waiver claim. If you don't have Jordan Mason, I would probably say be prepared to spend 40 to 50% of your FOB, or you're in all likelihood going to miss out on him because the McCaffrey owner, goes all in at a necessity. If your league doesn't utilize FOB, then yeah, just put your whatever you can as far as a waiver claim, put that on Jordan Mason. But I do encourage, if your league doesn't utilize FOB for waivers, I do encourage that next year you start using it. That way everybody's got a free or the same equal chance at the same players relative to the amount of FAB bucks that they have each week. If that's an option for you, we're looking at 40 to 50% on Mason. And then, I don't know, say maybe 15% on Dobbins. Go a little higher if you feel like you're weak at running back, 15 to 20% on Dobbins. But you want to go 40 to 50% on Mason at this point. And if you have McCaffrey and for whatever reason you didn't pick up Jordan Mason before last night's game, whether you missed the news or whatever, or you weren't available, whatever have you, if Mason is still out there, all of it, all of your FOB, at least 75%. This is your season is like you're staring down you're staring down the gun barrel. If you have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason is sitting out there on waivers, you have to end up with him. You have to. It's officially kind of icky with Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, Jordan Mason. Top dog on waivers if he's still available. What type of wide receiver can you get for Drake London and Tyler Lockett? I mean, you better you got to upgrade from any wide receiver. This isn't going to work, but any wide receiver that was drafted ahead of Drake London. Like, you're not going to get Deebo Samuel. You're obviously not going to get Cooper Kupp. You're not going to get Mike Evans. I'm trying to think of any. Like, you might get Devontae Adams, but I don't even know if you want to do that. Like, I think better days are ahead for Drake London. I know he fell flat, but like you would be selling Drake London at his lowest point. So I'm actually going to kind of nip this in the bud right now. Never trade a player, a wide receiver, running back, anything. Never trade them at their lowest point because you're only going to get pennies on the dollar. Anybody can try to lowball you right now. Like, Tyler Lockett had a decent game. That's great. But Drake London is the name in this potential package that you're talking about. And he had 2 catches for 15 yards. Nobody's going to want to give you anything good for that. We got to wait until his value gets back up. Better days should be ahead. Kirk Cousins, it wasn't great against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you got to figure better days are ahead for the Atlanta Falcons as they kind of find themselves. Remember, this is a new offense, new quarterback throwing to new receivers, new offensive line. Everything's different for Kirk Cousins and for the Falcons offense in general. So they're finding their way. They're figuring things out. Ideally they get it sorted out before the end of the season. That doesn't always come to fruition, but that's what you're banking on if you drafted Drake London in the second round. I'm not moving him yet because I don't even know what can I get for him. Unless and this is like, there's probably like only 3 leagues in the world where this is possible. The only conceivable thing that you could do is go check with the person who drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown and see if they're in a full-blown panic. And see if they want London and Tyler Lockett, which is not going to happen, and it would probably get vetoed in any league where there's vetoes. But Amon-Ra just came off like the worst game of his career. So, like, we're talking about, you're looking for like low ball versus low ball. But it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That would be like something that you could theoretically entertain, but I can't imagine that it's actually realistic. And if I was in that situation and someone offered that to me for Amon-Ra, I would tell them to get out of here. So just hold. Just hold. You gotta, like, it sucks, but like, you have to hold your players at their lowest point, because if you try to trade them at their lowest point, then you're not gonna get good value for that player. We just have to hold. Tyler Lockett had a nice day, but Tyler Lockett is a depth receiver in 10, 12, 14-team leagues. Maybe he starts in 14-team leagues. That would be, he's like a wide receiver 3 in deeper leagues. He doesn't move the needle. Drake London is what moves the needle here, and you would be getting pennies on the dollar. So I would say don't do anything. Don't do anything with Drake London. We need to wait to see, him to get his value back up. We need to get his value back up. And I meant there was a question. Is this a waiver question about a defense to pick up for this week? Jags, Chiefs, or Chargers? I wouldn't go with I know the Chiefs are solid and at home. You can pretty much rely on them, but I would look to, I know that, and the Bengals were not good, but I don't want to pick up a defense against Joe Burrow, even on the road, and even how bad the Bengals looked last week. I don't, if Jamar Chase, we have a whole week to see what happens with Jamar Chase, but let's say that contract situation gets figured out. Let's say T. Higgins is feeling a lot better. I don't want to pick up the Chiefs. The Jags are fine. They're playing the Browns. They're at home against the Browns. There's nothing scary about that matchup. And then with the Chargers, they should be okay. They're playing the Panthers. The Panthers look like they might be abysmal for the second straight year. They might be awful again. But I'm not as crazy about the Chargers just because they're on the road. Weirder things have happened than teams playing well at home, even bad teams. I would say Jacksonville is your stream here of those 3 options. Hopefully, you don't have to go nuts with the waiver wire ever to pick up a defense. But if you are looking for a defense to maybe scoop up after waivers process, Jacksonville is fine at home against Cleveland. And a sputtering Deshaun Watson who, I don't know. We might be closer to the end of Deshaun Watson than we are than we think or than we realize or we maybe thought going into the season. I mean, they are still bad. They are not a good team overall. Well, they're a good team overall. The quarterback play is so atrocious that it's pulling the rest of the team down. I mean, yeah. You can target Deshaun Watson with streaming defenses, especially when that defense is at home. So yeah, Jacksonville, they're fine. They're fine. But don't ever use your waivers on a defense. Pick them up after the fact. Pick them up after waivers process. Because I can't imagine anybody's looking at that. And if somebody does beat you to the punch on something like that, we'll find another stream this week. I'm not worried. We can always. There's always, at least on paper, there's always worthy defensive streams, like more than one. You are getting offered Lamar for Purdy and James Cook. Yeah. You have Kyron, you have Kenneth Walker, you have Chuba Hubbard. So Hubbard might go by the wayside later in the season if Jonathan Brooks comes back. But for now, for at least the next 3 or 4 weeks, he should be a solid plug and play. I mean, running backs on waivers. I assume that Jordan Mason is probably already gone if you haven't listed him on waivers. But yeah, I mean, trading Brock Purdy and James Cook for one of the difference makers at quarterback, I would be okay with that. It would be a little. Could you get a depth running back in return? Like somebody, it doesn't have to be as good as James Cook, but just like who? Because it's a two for one trade anyway. That person's probably going to have to drop somebody. Do they have a bench, a end of bench running back that they could include in the deal just so that you get some running back depth in return? Depending on who they have, like just do a 2 for 2. Get Lamar, grab whatever depth running back they have from them because they're going to have to drop a player anyway. That would be my question. Which bottom of the bench running back from their team could you pluck in the trade just to make it an even 2 for 2? That's what I would be curious to know about. That being said, I do want Lamar Jackson for Brock Purdy and James Cook. If you can get them to sweeten the pot with a depth running back to just make it an even 2 for 2 trade, I would want to see the names first. But yeah, I'm on board with that. I am on board with that. Javonte, that doesn't get me excited, but it's not awful. I'd be curious to know who else they have. Javonte might be asking for too much, but screw it. You might as well actually. I would try because if Javonte doesn't work out, you still upgraded at quarterback and took a chance on a depth running back. I would still try that. I would say, can I get Javonte back in the deal? And then that way you can swing it like, you can keep your defense. You can keep your backup defense. Yeah. But yeah, I'll take Lamar Jackson for I'll take Lamar Jackson for Purdy and Cook if you can also get Javonte Williams back in the deal. Yeah, I would take that. See, that's a classic example of a buy. Like Javonte might be cooked, and I would hate if that was actually the case because I like Javonte and I root for Javonte and I've been a fan of him since he came out of UNC. But if he's a shell of himself after the knee injury that he suffered a couple of years ago, and the team wants to get Jaleel McLaughlin more involved, and they want to get Audric Estime more involved eventually, like, yeah, that would suck. But at least we took a swing, but it's a buy low. It's a buy low anyway. You're buying him at his lowest point, so he's like a throw-in in a deal, but he still represents running back depth that is worth hanging on to for a little while. I would try to get that done. If you could do Lamar and Javonte for Purdy and Cook, I would do that trade to get Lamar. Yes, I would do that deal. And then to answer the question, the running back that he might not be available at this point, but if Jordan Mason is still on waivers, he has to be the top priority and somebody that you're spending half of your FOB on. If you're a McCaffrey owner who missed on getting Jordan Mason last night, but he is still on waivers, or if nobody else plucked him last night or poached him, if you have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason is out there, all of it, all the FOB, 75, 80% of the FOB, all of it. That is your season on the line right now because Christian McCaffrey's health is currently unclear. So if Mason is not available, J.K. Dobbins, Tank Bigsby, Jeff Wilson, especially if you have Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson might get an extended run on Thursday night. Jalen Wright, to that same point, he might get a little bit more involved if both Achane and Mostert are out. Bucky Irving, Bucky Irving looks like he's going to potentially carve a role out for himself sooner than later. Justice Hill, I like Justice Hill. I call Justice Hill one of my favorite late targets during draft season, mostly because Keaton Mitchell was still recovering from the ACL, and Rasheen Ali is a rookie who I think has been placed on IR, so he's guaranteed out the next 3 games minimum. So I like Justice Hill. There will be some games where the Ravens are playing from behind or in some shootouts, particularly with their early season schedule. So Justice Hill is definitely viable. McLaughlin is as well. To that point, again, I hope Javonte Williams isn't toast, isn't cooked, but he might be. It's possible he is. It's possible that the Broncos, it's just, it's week 1, Bo Nix, first career start, tough spot on the road, tough matchup against Seattle. Maybe Javonte's fine for the rest of the season. But he split a lot of opportunities with Jaleel McLaughlin on Sunday. So it's possible that timeshare isn't going anywhere. So I'm fine with McLaughlin as a pickup. I'm fine with Justice Hill as a pickup. I'm fine with Tank Bigsby as a pickup. He had a nice game and figures to remain, a change of pace guy to help keep ETN fresh. And then J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins probably is available on waivers in a decent number of leagues. He's not going to do what he did against the Raiders every week. A committee generally means the guy's going to look really good one week and maybe be kind of lackluster the next based on matchups, based on what the team likes going into the week, what they want to do, and what player best suits what they want to do for that specific game, for that specific situation. Dobbins could be the team's RB1 most of the time, but it's possible Gus Edwards mixes in for some RB1 weeks as well. Nevertheless, Dobbins is absolutely worth rostering at the very least. If you're in line to maybe get the second or third best option at running back, which would be Jordan Mason or a handcuff to a running back to one of your starters. So if you have ETN, Tank Bigsby might be a little bit more valuable to you than J.K. Dobbins. If you have Rachaad White, Bucky Irving might be a little bit more valuable to you than J.K. Dobbins, just from the perspective of if one guy goes down, I have the dude who's going to pick up all the work. Yeah. Finish off handcuffs if you have the opportunity to. If you can get the insurance policy for your investment, it behooves you to do that. If you can roster an entire committee, roster that committee. If you have 2 committees, then great. Or a starter and a handcuff, great. But make sure that you are the manager, the league owner that has control over that situation. In order for running backs, as far as the waiver wire priority this week, it's Jordan Mason, then J.K. Dobbins, probably then Tank Bigsby. He had a real nice day, 73 rushing yards. I would probably say Tank Bigsby is number 3. Jeff Wilson would be 4. He's maybe 3 if you have Devon Achane. He might be 1 or 2. Well, he's 2 if you have Devon Achane. Jordan Mason needs to be the number 1 ad for anybody, regardless of who you have on your team, if he is still available. If he's not, Dobbins is probably 1, and then if you have one of the Dolphins backs, Jeff Wilson is a priority. If you have Rashad White, then Bucky Irving. Tank Bigsby maybe usurps those guys in general, and he definitely does if you have Travis Etienne. Those would be the top 4 or 5 names. Jalen Wright is in the mix as well. He could see an expanded role if both Achane and Raheem Mostert miss Thursday night against the Bills. JMO was dropped in a 10-team league. Was this after Sunday night or before? There must be, whoever did this must be beside themselves. JMO had a spectacular week 1. That was like the best case scenario that we could have ever asked for Jameson Williams. Why would anybody ever drop him? Unless they got Jordan Mason and that was like their only clear but man, 5 catches, 120 yards and a touchdown. That is like, if we're getting that 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 or 5 times, I don't know how greedy I'm getting. If we get that from Jameson Williams this year, the holy hell, those are dividends that will be paid. That is insane. That is insane. There was no way that there was any good reason to do that. How much fob would I drop on JMO? Like 60%. I don't know if that's too much. At least 50%. Like the Lions, think about it. We spent all offseason, everybody. The hype was so real for Jameson Williams. This blows my mind. Everybody was gassing up Jameson Williams. He looks great. He looks awesome. The Lions have big plans for him. They come out of the draft not really addressing wide receiver, which continues to fan those flames that Jameson Williams is going to be, the guy for them as far as who steps up in that offense. And then it happened. Week 1, the first week in prime time, at home. Wild card matchup, huge game, playoff implications. Jameson Williams has 5 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. That could not have gone any better. I can't believe somebody would have dropped him. He's going to be volatile. He's not going to do that most weeks. If we get 5 for 120 from Jameson Williams 3 or 4 more times this year, I will be happy. 3 or 4 more times, I will be happy with that. Trying to keep expectations in check here. If he does it more, great, but I won't put that on him. The hype was real for Jameson Williams Sunday night. I don't know who your other wide receivers are, but if you start 3 wide receivers, Jameson Williams should be 60 to 65% of your FOB. That's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver. He's a volatile wide receiver 3, but if he's like your wide receiver 4 that you're just spending FOB bucks on, then make it happen. Then make that happen. If you only start 2 wide receivers and you've got good wide receivers, then it's a little less enticing, but still, he should be rostered. There should not be a scenario where he's on waivers. Not at all. 60% is where I would go. Especially if I start 3 receivers. Especially if I start 3 wide receivers. So part of it has to do with the makeup of your starting lineup. And yeah, I would drop Ty Chandler to stash Jalen Wright, especially if you have Achane or Mostert, if not both. Both guys, it's not looking great for their availability for the Dolphins Thursday night against the Bills. If Achane has to sit or if Mostert has to sit, I would say Jeff Wilson could be the guy in line for more work, but if both guys are out, then both Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright will have roles. I don't think it's unfair to consider that this early in the season and Jalen Wright theoretically only playing his second career game, Jeff Wilson would be the team's RB1. If Achane and Mostert are both out, I would not be surprised to see Jeff Wilson operate as the de facto RB1 for Miami Thursday night. He's a vet. He's done well throughout his career. Yes, he's had some injury issues, but the numbers don't lie. Jeff Wilson is a rock solid contributor and an efficient player when he's on the field. I would think he gets first crack if Achane and Mostert are both out. But Wright is, to that point, Wright is worth a stash. Wright is worth a stash because they're neither of them, Achane or Mostert, are looking very strong for this week as of right now. So it's a tough spot, but at least they're at home. I mean, Jeff Wilson would be worthy of like he'd be on the RB3 radar, maybe the low end RB2 radar if Achane and Mostert can't go. Let's see. I think that about covers most everything. Talked waivers. I'll rehash waivers in here shortly. Got through injuries at the top of the show, so I'll timestamp that. And I think I got everything, at least as of right now. I will keep this chat open for a bit more in case there are any more last minute questions or thoughts that come through. But top targets for waivers this week: Baker Mayfield would top the charts at quarterback. 289 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Great collection of wide receiver talent still. Potential shootout against the Detroit Lions this week 2. So if you lost Jordan Love to injury, or maybe you're between like a Caleb Williams and trying to figure out where to go or what to do, Baker Mayfield would be the top target at quarterback for this week. If you're desperate, you could go Justin Fields or Derek Carr. That's probably more like the super flex format conversation, and those guys are probably already rostered anyway. But maybe in 14 or 16 super deep one quarterback leagues, a Justin Fields or a Derek Carr could be available. Tougher matchup for Carr against the Cowboys. Fields, on the other hand, plays the Broncos, so maybe his prospects are a little bit better for week 2. If he goes, if it's Russ, I feel less strong about that just because it'll be his first game action coming off of an injury. So it's pretty much Baker Mayfield or bust. I guess Geno Smith, Will Levis, Sam Darnold are, decent options as well, depending on how desperate you are at quarterback. The top targets at running back this week are Jordan Mason if he's still available. It's likely he isn't, but if he is, 40 to 50% of your FOB if you don't have Christian McCaffrey. But if you do have Christian McCaffrey and you missed out on Jordan Mason, this is essentially, it hurts or it might not feel great, but this is what FOB is for, to just, in this scenario, help keep your season alive. And that's what Jordan Mason presents for a McCaffrey owner if they didn't already grab him prior to Monday Night Football last night. J.K. Dobbins would come after that. Jaleel McLaughlin, Tank Bigsby, Jeff Wilson, Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving. Any combination of those running backs are solid pickups if you don't have to drop a guy like a Trey Benson or a Blake Corum. I want to hang on to the young running backs. We drafted them as stashes to begin with. I don't want to overreact after 1 week where they didn't really do anything, especially Corum, who didn't do literally anything. But I don't want to overreact on guys like that just yet. End of bench, stashes, sure. We're always looking for viable running back depth. Those are the names that present it. Mason being 1. I would say Dobbins is 2. And then depending on depending on if you have one of the starters, any of those other names get prioritized. If not, I would probably go Tank Bigsby 3, maybe Bucky Irving 4, Jeff Wilson 5 for just week 2. Jaleel McLaughlin is maybe like in a tie for 5 or 6. I don't know if we're going to see more of Javonte Williams or less of Javonte Williams. McLaughlin also fumbled in their matchup against Seattle, so he might fly under the radar a little bit. At wide receiver, Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed. A lot of these guys could be rostered even in maybe not 10-team leagues, but probably 12-team leagues. If those guys are available, Jacoby Myers. I don't really want to suggest Jerry Jeudy, but he did catch a touchdown. So if you're super desperate for some wide receiver depth, the thing is the situation around the Browns, specifically their offense, stays bad. And let's call a spade a spade. The vibes aren't going to improve now that Deshaun Watson is in the news again for all the wrong reasons, not the right ones. So not sure how good I feel about Jeudy. 2 guys flying way under the radar is Mitchell with the Colts. His separation score led the NFL this week. He did a great job separating. Anthony Richardson just missed on a few throws to him. So the Colts rookie wide receiver is looking good as like a guy that is just flying way under the radar that the rest of your league is probably overlooking. So he's a viable option to take a look at. If you could use some wide receiver help, at least until Josh Downs comes back. And even if he does come back okay, I mean, it's possible Mitchell leapfrogged him because he's been healthy and Downs has missed a lot of time dating back to earlier in the preseason. And then Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch is like the deep wide receiver option. Again, if you're desperate for wide receiver help, Kyler Murray seems to like to throw the ball to him. 6 catches for 47 yards. I would think he is a regular in the offense in the slot. Everybody else in that offense, the rest of those wide receivers are built for the outside. So Dortch probably has that slot role all to himself. They might rotate, move Marvin Harrison in there here and there, but he's going to be a boundary wide. He's the X wide receiver. They'll move him around, but he's primarily going to play on the outside. Dortch looks like the slot guy for them regularly. So if you're really desperate for wide receiver or looking at the bottom of the barrel in deeper leagues, Dortch is definitely an option. Tight end, obviously Isaiah Likely. It goes without saying, especially if you're desperate, feel free to spend 20 to 25, maybe 25 to 30% of FOB on him if you punted at tight end. If you didn't punt at tight end, you got guys like, Kyle Pitts, who did well. He had a touchdown grab, but if you might be just looking at a tight end too, because that's just how some folks like to operate. Maybe you have Evan Ingram, who didn't play well. You had Jake Ferguson, who got hurt. Dalton Kincaid didn't have a huge game. Sam Laporta didn't have a huge game. I'm not saying overreact on any of these guys. I'm just saying you may have these dudes and you may be looking at Likely. I personally wouldn't. You want to go back to the well when it comes to, if I invested in a tight end, I might as well just keep sticking with that tight end until I really, truly need a reason not to. And that's usually going to take at least a couple weeks into the season. We don't want to overreact on week 1 just yet. But if you punted on tight end in your draft and you did not end up with Isaiah Likely, and yet he is out on waivers, he is the obvious top option for your team. Feel free to spend 25 to 30% of your FOB to get him. And you may even need to go a little bit higher. The Ravens have no choice. They have to leave him on the field. They have to keep him on the field and get him on the field. He's too good to keep off of it. If you miss out on Likely, a deep tight end option, which is maybe more of a stash at this particular moment in time than anything else, would be Tucker Kraft. He operated as the Packers tight end 1 against the Eagles in Brazil. It was not Luke Musgrave. It was Tucker Kraft. His numbers weren't crazy at the end of the day, but he played over 95% of the snaps, and that is significant. So if you miss on Likely and you're looking for a tight end stash, Tucker Kraft is a guy that is worth a look. If you need a more immediate play, then you may need to be more aggressive with your FOB bucks on Isaiah Likely. You, of course, feel a little bit more comfortable about starting him as soon as this week after the performance that he had against the Chiefs. Let's see. What are my thoughts on Chase Brown? Yeah, I mean the entire Bengals offense laid an egg against New England. It wasn't pretty. Three carries for 11 yards for Chase Brown. Obviously, these are the types of games that could theoretically happen for him, where he's just not really a factor. He is a home run hitter. He is a big time playmaker. He's not going to make big plays every game, especially in a game like this where the entire offense just fell flat. Um, so I think that's one that you kind of just flush down the toilet and we keep it moving. I do want to see Chase Brown and what he could potentially do for another week or two. I don't want to over. He's another guy that has garnered a lot of hype this offseason. I don't want to be too trigger happy and drop him too early. Chase Brown is the name that I think I'm more inclined to say let's hang on to him for a little bit longer and see if there are better days ahead for the Bengals offense, which there should be. So no, I want to hang on to Chase Brown. I would not drop Javonte Williams to pick up J.K. Dobbins, but I would be curious to know who else is at the end of your bench that could be a candidate to drop for J.K. Dobbins. I want to pick up J.K. Dobbins, but I'm not sure if Javonte Williams is the guy that I want to drop to make that happen, at least not yet. Javonte might be cooked. It also might have just been a bad game, rookie quarterback on the road, tough spot, first career start. I do want to give Javonte a couple of weeks before I hit the panic button on him. The Broncos offense that is in transition, rookie quarterback getting his feet wet, playing the first snaps of his career at the NFL level. But Javonte is healthy, over a year removed from the torn ACL, which could still ultimately be holding him back. But I want to see things play out a little bit first before I drop Javonte Williams. I want J.K. Dobbins, but I don't know if it's at the expense of Javonte Williams. If well, if all you have is running backs, can you find a team that is loaded at wide receiver and try to make a trade? That would be the first step. I would see if I could trade anyone. Now it might mean that you miss out on you know running back ads in the waiver wire, but I would want to see if I can swing a trade. I would want to see if I can swing a trade to pick up a wide receiver. I don't know if that's Rashad White or Zamir White, but if you can trade, I don't want to trade Rashad White, but if you can trade Rashad White for a good wide receiver, which you should be able to do, um, that might help you navigate and get through the absence of not having Puka for 4 games, at least 4 games. Who knows? We don't know if Puka's going to need more time than a month. My first step, if it's Zamir White, he probably doesn't have any. Oh, you have no other. Wait, okay, those are not okay. I thought you okay. I was a little confused. You had no wide receiver. Those wide receivers are all worthy of starting. I misunderstood. All right. Yeah, you can start all of those wide receivers, or those are guys that could absolutely get you through the Puka absence. Yeah, I mean, having Lamb and Gibbs. Yeah, these are all okay. These are all top flight options. Yeah, this might be an eight. If this might be an 8-team league. If it's a 10-team league, then kudos on putting that together. But CD and Gibbs are I mean, if Gibbs fell late second round, that'd be a hell of a fall. Regardless, I guess you have enough good pieces to move on from Javonte if you want to take a shot on J.K. Dobbins. There's enough good options on your team to where if you want to move on from a guy like Javonte to pick up Dobbins, that's fine. You can do that. That's okay. What are my thoughts on Adonai Mitchell? You just missed him. Very good, very high. Separation score led the league this week. Did a great job getting open. Anthony Richardson just missed him on a couple of throws. They are like some timing missteps that they can correct. They're a couple of those missteps away from Mitchell having a massive week and a massive NFL debut. Mitchell is gonna likely fly under the radar in waivers this week because he didn't have a huge statistical performance, but he showed enough out there where there's reason to believe that it can happen as soon as week 2. He was regularly getting open. He was regularly creating separation. Richardson just missed him on a couple of throws, and Richardson will get that stuff sorted out. Remember, Richardson missed a lot of time last year to the shoulder injury. Was wiped. His season was wiped out after like week 5 or 6, maybe even a little sooner than that. So he's getting back into the swing of things. It's okay if you look a little rusty after almost a year's absence, and it's your first game playing with your new rookie wide receiver. Like, they're figuring this type of stuff out. But he got open. He made himself available to his quarterback. I have no reason to believe that moving forward, even when Josh Downs comes back, that Mitchell is a regular in this offense. He might be a little volatile. He's going to have his weeks where he doesn't really do anything, but he's going to have his spike weeks as well, where he's going to draw some favorable matchups, and it looks like he has the chops to take advantage. Yeah, he looks good. I would feel very good about a guy like Mitchell. Kudos if you drafted him. Like, he was the one who got open. The numbers at the end of the day were not on him. I don't want to put too much on Richardson, but the throws were on Richardson. They were not totally accurate. But I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. Again, first game back after missing most of the year last year to shoulder surgery. We'll get there. We'll get there with the Colts and the offense in general. Finding their groove. Mitchell's looks like he's gonna be a part of that. Yeah, I would hang on to him if you have him. If you're looking for some wide receiver depth, some deep wide receiver depth, and Mitchell, you probably can even let him kind of sneak through waivers. You're probably not going to have to put a whole lot up to get him, if anything at all, because the numbers at the end of the day weren't that great, but that wasn't on him. Yeah, I feel quite good about him. Stock is up on Mitchell moving forward. They just need to get him and Anthony Richardson just need to get that timing down. They just need to work on that. They just need to work on getting that timing down, and that's something that they will work on in the coming weeks in practice and all that stuff. And they'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, feel good about him. As for the rookie tight end in Washington, Benny Boy, I haven't really been a big proponent of him for this year. I think Zach Ertz blocks the way. He's listed as number one on the depth chart, so that's good. At least on Sleeper, he's listed as number one on the depth chart. But it was a goose egg week one, and this offense is this passing game is going to be difficult to trust beyond Terry McLaurin, because at this particular moment, at this stage of his career, Jaden Daniels, who looks like a league-winning option at quarterback, but right now he's kind of like a one read and go type of guy. I just don't know that the passing volume is going to be there week to week for anybody outside of Terry McLaurin, and even he looks like a little volatile right now, even though he's going to command a massive target share. I mean, this is a Washington offense that they're going to run a lot, and I know the coaches have said this past week that they don't want him running as much as they did. They want him to be a pocket passer. Obviously, if he sees an opportunity, then don't be afraid to take it. Maximize your own abilities, your own talents. But, what do they want when they say they want him to be a drop back, pocket passer and stay in the pocket? What do they have to entice him to do that? They've got Terry McLaurin, who's a good receiver. He's a good player. He's an upper echelon player. After that, it's Dyami Brown and Luke McCaffrey and Olamide Zaccheaus and these tight ends, Zach Ertz, who's 150 years old, and then a second-round rookie, who just doesn't sound like he's quite there yet, in an offense that's I just don't know how much volume is there to go around. They're going to run the crap out of the ball, plus Austin Eckler siphons targets, like whatever that looks like for the Commanders for the rest of the season. Again, it's a limited pecking order. I'm not all this to say, I'm not really bullish on any of the Washington pass catchers outside of Terry McLaurin, and we might even be, God, for God's sakes, with Terry McLaurin, like we can't have nice things, or Terry McLaurin can't have nice things. And Jaden Daniels is still probably the best quarterback that he has played with to this point of his NFL career, but this is going to be a limited passing offense, and Terry McLaurin might be the victim of some low volume in general, a lot of weeks. I can't really endorse any of the Commanders' pass catchers outside of Terry McLaurin, and he might struggle to be a wide receiver 2 on the season, not because Terry McLaurin can't do it, but because of this limited passing offense. Jaden Daniels is a league-winning quarterback, is a fantasy league-winning quarterback because of he'll run, and that the amount that he runs and the efficiency that he can run. Again, Washington doesn't want him running the ball 16 times, but you haven't left him much to work with as a rookie. And running is like one of his elite skills, traits anyway. Luke McCaffrey's a rookie. Dyami Brown is starting for the first time. Olamide Zaccheaus has never been anything more than he's a role player. He's a solid role player, but he's a role player. Zach Ertz is he's old. So yeah, he is going to continue to run because that's one of their only options. And they'll throw it to Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Brian Robinson's a receiver as well. Yeah, he did that. He did that thing on Sunday. He can catch the ball too. So no, I don't. It's not just the rookie tight end. It's anybody not named Terry McLaurin. I can't endorse in any way for the entire season. A random guy will have a week here and there. Somebody will, 1 week Luke McCaffrey might have a decent week. 1 week Zach Ertz might have a decent week. 1 week Dyami Brown might have a decent week. But it's going to be, we're going to throw the ball to Terry McLaurin. when we can. We're going to throw the ball to the running backs because that should be easy, and they are our better playmakers. And then we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler and with Jaden Daniels. Like, that's the game plan. That's the game plan. Yeah. Congrats if you have Jaden Daniels. That's a league-winning quarterback, right? Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels are the league winners at quarterback as of right now. And I know it's only week one. You can pat yourself on the back if you have either Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels. I don't care about the rhetoric coming out of Washington that they want Jaden Daniels to run the ball less. They don't have much of a choice. He's gonna have to run. Those are the league winners at quarterback thus far. And how do I feel about Jonathan Brooks? Good, strongly. I think he's talented enough to overcome that bad situation, but he has to prove that he's healthy. And there's two things working against him there. One, obviously, is the injury itself, the torn ACL, and when it was suffered. I think it was back in November. So we might not be able to rely on Jonathan Brooks until, like, I don't know, week 9, maybe week 8. Week 9 or week 10 is a little bit more realistic of a scenario. But if they do unleash him, I feel good about him from just a pure talent perspective. I still believe in Dave Canales to call the plays. I just can't imagine Carolina is this bad for every single week for the second straight year when they have a better head coach with a better offensive game plan. And I know they got boat raced by the New Orleans Saints. I can't imagine they are that bad every week for the second year in a row. If they are, then there's not a single person in Carolina other than maybe the head coach who only just got hired this year who should keep their job, and that includes Bryce Young. That being said, I like Jonathan Brooks. I think he's, when healthy, incredibly talented. The Panthers thought enough to make him the first running back off the board this year, even with the injury, knowing that he wasn't going to be ready week 1. So I think that's a testament to what we expect from Jonathan Brooks when he's ready. Plus, like, who else do they have to give the ball to? Chuba Hubbard's a nice player and had a nice run to end the season last year, but he is not the long-term answer at running back. We already know what Miles Sanders is. So, yeah, I feel quite good about Jonathan Brooks. That was the one issue is the injury itself. The second problem is, to the point of the Panthers being awful, how much game action is he going to see this year? Do they just shut him down because, well, we suck? We're headed to the first overall pick probably for the second time in 3 years, and really 3 straight years because they should have had it last year. We're not going to risk our young running back coming off an injury in a lost season, so we're going to shut him down, which will be incredibly easy to do because he's already actually injured anyway, or recovering from an injury that he suffered back in November. So working around those specifics will be incredibly easy for Carolina if that's the route that they choose to go. So there is a decent amount of risk with Jonathan Brooks this year. That being said, I have taken plenty of shots on him because even if we do only get him for a 4, 5, 6 week stretch, he should have RB2 upside as like the clear top talent in that backfield. What I would be concerned about with Jonathan Brooks other than just obviously getting ready and getting right and getting healthy from the injury. But do the Panthers shut him down in a third straight season that is like completely lost for them? That possibility also exists. But I have him in multiple redraft leagues. He's on IR. I expand IR, or I have expanded IR in all of the leagues that I commission in. There's usually 2 or 3 IR spots in the leagues that I commission in. Injuries are just like so prevalent in today's NFL. Um, I think it's a fair uh, addition to fantasy lineups that not every league may have. It's so volatile how many injuries take place and suck games away from your potential starting lineup. So I have multiple IR spots. So I have Jonathan Brooks in one of my IR spots in multiple leagues. I'm hanging on to him. I am waiting to see if that cake bakes, and maybe by week 8, week 9, I'm able to consider him as a potential RB2 when the time comes. So very much a stash and wait. I don't expect to see him for another 5 or 6 weeks. Um, Possible we only have him for a portion of the year, but he could provide some real strong value for the weeks that he is available. Uh, let's see. You got Lamar. Oh wow, you got a couple of offers here. Lamar and Jaleel McLaughlin for Brock Purdy and James Cook. I like that. Jalen Hurts and Ezekiel Elliott for Purdy and Cook. I like that, but not as much. I know Zeke got a touchdown this past week, but I'm not sure how much I want to buy into that. I like both of these returns. I do. Like it comes down to it's full PPR scoring. Jaleel McLaughlin is probably more valuable than Ezekiel Elliott is in full PPR scoring. I mean, I would say probably the first one, probably Lamar and McLaughlin. For Purdy and James Cook. I think I'm okay with that one. I think it would be that one. I think it would be the Lamar trade. Like Purdy is solid and he looked really good. He looked really good against the Jets last night. But, you got to figure, is Brock Purdy going to have Christian McCaffrey this year in any capacity? If he doesn't, like that, his passing yardage floor and the ability to extend drives is lowered. I would say Lamar and Jaleel McLaughlin in full PPR for Purdy and James Cook. I'm okay with that. I mean, Purdy doesn't give you. Last year, Purdy gave you 144 yards on the ground, like as a runner. That's just not, that's not a needle mover in fantasy football. That's an average of under 10 yards a game. That's less than 1 point. That's not a huge difference maker. I would take Lamar and McLaughlin for Purdy and Cook. I would be okay, cool. I am good with that. I am good with that return. I think Lamar is a big upgrade at quarterback. Obviously, he's a Konami code with the rushing upside. Brock Purdy doesn't really give you anything as a runner. And now we're looking at a potentially 49ers, potentially that offense is without Christian McCaffrey for some amount of time. Or could be a Christian McCaffrey lingering issue with the Achilles all season long. That's no good. That lowers Brock Purdy's floor. So, yeah, I'm good with that. I am good with that trade. James, and I don't want to completely diminish James Cook in all of this, but to that point, I like James Cook. He's a good running back. He doesn't score touchdowns. Josh Allen scores touchdowns. Josh Allen is the goal line runner for the Bills, and not James Cook. Ray Davis was getting in there. I mean, James Cook got a lot of work. I think he had like 22 opportunities. I think he cleared 100 scrimmage yards. James Cook's a good player, but he just doesn't score touchdowns. So I am willing to flip him. I am willing to let him go for a quarterback upgrade and still getting a decent depth running back in return, who I think is on the rise, who I think is ascending. Yeah, I like that move. I like that deal. I like that trade. I do. I like that trade. Yeah, I like that trade. Upgraded at quarterback, downgraded at running back, but you still picked up some decent depth, some interesting depth. I like it. I'm with it. I think that's everything for this evening. Injuries are covered near the top of the show, covered waivers, and then, of course, talk shop tonight with everybody who may have had something that was on their mind or thinking about what they were wanting to do. So I will check for a couple more comments here or questions here before I shut it down. But appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out this evening. Hopefully the week 1 matchup went your way, but if it didn't, that's okay. There's still plenty of time to course correct. Am I selling or holding Mason? Hold. All this crap with the Christian McCaffrey injury is incredibly dicey. It's incredibly ambiguous. This sounds like something that we don't know yet, but like this Achilles tendonitis, whatever that means, that sounds like something that could absolutely linger for the entire season. If Christian McCaffrey is having a hard time getting ready or getting healthy, Jordan Mason is at worst a high-end RB2 most weeks, at worst. And if he is the team's bell cow, he's an RB1 most likely for the season. Unless you can get the farm, if you have Jordan Mason and you are maybe you're loaded at running back. Maybe you got studs on studs at running back, and you're loaded and you run 5 deep and you're confident about your depth for the entire season, and Jordan Mason is a luxury piece. Can you flip Mason to the person who has Christian McCaffrey in your league for their wide receiver? Their wide receiver 1. You could ask for their wide receiver 1. That's how valuable he is. Oh, he's loaded at running back. All right, then just keep Mason. Then just keep him. Just keep, because you're not going to get top value from anybody that isn't the McCaffrey owner. That's the most valuable thing to do is to hold Mason. The second most valuable thing would be, in my mind, if you're loaded at running back and you can get a really good wide receiver, or vice versa. Maybe you're loaded at wide receiver and you can get like a bigger name at running back. But even then, Jordan Mason is the bigger name now. We're looking at a guy who, right now, today, if the Christian McCaffrey concerns linger, if this injury doesn't go away, if this Achilles tendonitis continues to bother him, hold him out of games, then you have the most valuable piece already in any potential deal. You already have that piece, and that's Jordan Mason. I mean, you could try to buy McCaffrey, but I assume that the person who just drafted him first overall is going to continue to ask for top dollar for him. And let's call a spade. As excellent as Christian McCaffrey is right now, he's not worth that. He's not worth the price of the first overall pick in the draft right now. Not with this Achilles injury. Not with this Achilles injury. Dynasty, even more. I would say even more so. He's an aging running back at this point. Christian McCaffrey is a guy that 28 years old this year. So if he's healthy, he's still RB1, but he's not healthy. His age 29 season next year. Now we're like getting real long in the tooth. We're already at that 1,800 career threshold, that 1,800 touch threshold for his career. And yes, a significant chunk, almost half of those, maybe 40 to 45% of those are catches. So a little less wear and tear, but McCaffrey's already had a significant injury-marred season in 2020. Now he's got this Achilles tendonitis issue 3-4 years later in his age 28 season that is potentially impacting his availability for the short and the long term. Yeah, I would not. If you can get him for pennies on the dollar, then fine, take the risk. But McCaffrey's value is going down right now. I mean, Achilles tendonitis, that just sounds like something that's going to linger. I would be operating with extreme caution trying to buy Christian McCaffrey, especially in Dynasty, because if this wrecks his campaign, if this calf injury and the Achilles tendonitis combination derails Christian McCaffrey's 2024 campaign, the rest of his prospects for moving forward for the next 2 or 3 years are way more volatile. Way more volatile. I would be awfully careful. Acquiring him. Because the problem is Christian McCaffrey is just one of those dudes where you're probably not settling in an offer. You're probably just not settling. Even in full-blown panic mode, if I had Christian McCaffrey in redraft or in Dynasty, yes, I would be in full-blown panic mode. But I think for me, it's just me. I can only speak for myself. My thought process would be, this is a ship that I'm sinking with. Like if Christian McCaffrey goes down, then I'm going down with it. Like I will crash and burn with Christian McCaffrey because he's that dude that is worth holding out on if he's healthy. We're talking about RB1 overall status. He might not be that anymore, so somebody may not offer that to me in a trade, and I'm probably just going to be too stubborn to say anything other than I'm not interested, even if it makes sense because the injuries are starting to pile up. So you could try to get him for pennies on the dollar. A second-round pick would not get it done. I would say I need a first, and that's probably unfair to ask, but that's what I'm asking for because it's Christian McCaffrey. I'd be like, I need that pick to be top 6 or top 5 if it's 10-team dynasty. Like I would still. They'd be like, dude, you're not going to get that. It's going to be like, I don't care. That's what I'm asking for. It's just like, this is just that dude that I'm like, he's mine. I have him. I've seen him be the overall RB1 twice, the RB2 another couple of times. I've seen this dude be that guy. I just don't want to give him up for pennies on the dollar. I assume that is how most people are going to operate. You can try. Always try. Never be afraid to shoot your shot. But that one might get shot down. I would say I need a first-round pick, and that might be unreasonable at this point, but it's Christian freaking McCaffrey, and that's what I'm asking for. And it needs to be a top 5 pick. Like I need guarantee that it's a top 5 or top 6 pick. Take the shot. Absolutely take the shot, especially if you have Jordan Mason, because then you have the insurance policy in your back pocket and you're safe if anything if things don't pan out or things don't work out. That's just, it's going to be something that it's a huge risk. Yeah, if you have Mason, do it. Or if you have Mason, take the shot. If you don't have Mason, then absolutely not. He's too risky right now. The vibes are weird. The situation is ambiguous. We know so little right now. Yeah. That sucks. It sucks for anybody in redraft who just drafted McCaffrey first overall. It might be a little bit easier of a pill to swallow if you have him in Dynasty and maybe you've had him for a while. Maybe you won a championship with him as recently as last year. In redraft, though, that sucks because you just drafted him first overall. We were all operating under the assumption that he was fine. I see a start. This is a start sit question for some quarterbacks. I guess I would lean. Fields and Knicks, but again, I do encourage anybody who has start sit questions for the weekend that don't involve the Thursday night game to come back during the weekend. Streams when we've got injury reports, when we've got practice reports. What if something even happens to Deshaun Watson now that he's got another legal situation on his hands that takes him out of the running? I know that the report today was that he's not expected to go on the exempt list, but we all know the NFL, shit changes all the time. What if Watson is just straight up not an option for you? So tentatively Fields and Knicks, but I would ask that you come back during the weekend for start sit help as it pertains to Sunday. What if one of these guys ends up on the injury report? What if Russell Wilson ends up starting? There's a lot of questions that we need to sort through until we get to Sunday. So if you can, make it back for the start sit streams Saturday and Sunday. I am live Saturday 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday 11 a.m. Eastern for start sit help every weekend. I encourage you to come back for the start sit streams on the weekend if you have start sit questions that don't pertain to the Thursday night game. So Fields and Knicks, but what if Russ plays? What if Watson does go on the exempt list, So, yeah. Appreciate the question, though. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out tonight. Thank you guys for taking the time, thinking enough to come hang, talk shop ahead of week 2. You have Watson and Wilson as your QB. You might need to find another quarterback. You might need to find another quarterback as like a QB4 for some insurance. Because I don't know what's going to happen to Watson. And Russ. Maybe he's in and out of the lineup. Maybe he returns and he's fine. Like, you might want to be shopping around. Maybe take those assets and, forget CMC. Find a bottom of the barrel quarterback on a rebuilding team, like an older quarterback. I don't know if there's a rebuilding team with a Matthew Stafford or a Geno Smith or somebody where you can just here's a second round pick, man. Like, I need another quarterback option for my stretch run, for my win now run. That might be where you want to put your energy, put your attention to. Get another quarterback. Oh, not your team. Got it. Not your team. Yeah, that wouldn't be. I wouldn't feel good about those options as a win now team. One is playing his way out of the league, and the other is grasping at straws, trying to hang on, maybe in a stable situation, but might not, is banged up, is injured, might not even start again this week. Who the hell knows? Yeah, I would. If I was that team, I think I would have to. I would probably have to swallow my pride and look to sell. Maybe that is not a win now formula. Josh Allen is a win. That's a win now formula. Josh Allen's a win now formula. Trevor Lawrence, we still need to see more. And then Derek, that's good. Yeah, that's a good. it's a good combination of quarterbacks. Lawrence as your QB2 is fine, but we're getting to the point where it's like, again, I don't want to kill anybody, or I don't want to get too high on somebody after a good performance week one, or get too low on a bad performance after week one because it's just 1 week. But come on, Trevor Lawrence, dog, you just got paid. You just got paid. We need to see it. We need to see it. I know, we're breaking in some new weapons. We're breaking in Gabe Davis. We're breaking in Brian Thomas, who looked good, by the way. I like Brian Thomas. But, come on, man. The pieces are there. I think the play calling is sound with Dougie P. It's like, come on, Trevor. It's time to start putting it together. All right. I think that does it. You picked up Brissett for a third option. Yeah, that's fine. We're operating week to week here, clearly, and that's fine at quarterback. That's totally fine. Let me see. I think that about does it. Would I try to get Love for Lawrence? I mean, you could try. You can try. If you can make that happen straight up, I would. If you think you can eat the short-term absence of Jordan Love, which I guess you can with Allen and Carr. I mean, I do like. The one problem, of course, now is does this injury that Love picked up, does this linger for the rest of the season? So that would be my one. That would be my one caveat. Would be if Love and we don't know what's going to happen. If Love comes back and is over the injury and he's healthy and he's fine a month from now and he's doing his thing, then great, water under the bridge. But is this something that's going to linger with Love for the season? Is he going to be playing hobbled even when he comes back? So, are you sacrificing at least yes, I have my questions about Trevor Lawrence, but at least he's healthy. At least he's healthy. So I would have a little bit of a reservation for that. If I have a win now team, if I have a win now squad, I have a little bit of reservation trying to swap Lawrence for Love. If I had more middle of the pack team and I was looking to shake things up and I could get Lawrence for Love and maybe a depth player, I would probably look at that and then maybe take a short-term hit for long-term for a long-term win. But if I have a win now team, I probably hold, even though I do like Love more than Lawrence by a little bit. In Dynasty, if Love was maybe Love is my QB 9 or 10, and then Trevor Lawrence is probably around the QB 12 or 13 spot. So it's not a significant difference, but Love I would rank higher for Dynasty. But for this season, is this injury going to be an issue for even when he returns? That's a question that you have to ask yourself. At least Lawrence is healthy. Oh, and you have Brian Thomas. So, I would keep what you have and just hope that Lawrence eventually starts to pay off. I would just hope for the best in that scenario. And he's the healthy guy. In a win now squad, health is everything. Yes, it could change in an instant, obviously. But right now, Lawrence is the guy who's healthy and Love isn't. That would be something I would maybe entertain in the offseason, but maybe not right now. All right, everybody. I think that's it for me tonight. Yeah, offer it straight up, and if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But you will be behind. You could be behind the 8 ball a little bit if Derek Carr falters over the next month, and then if Love's injury lingers into the season. But if you believe in Love, I'm okay with making the offer at the expense of a potential short-term hit for you this year. Which I do have admittedly some reservations about if you're a win now team. Okay, that will do it for me this evening, but appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out tonight. Best of luck with waivers. I will be back on Thursday ahead of Thursday Night Football. So if you've got any start-sit questions as it pertains to the Thursday night game, we'll have a little bit more clarity on injury reports at that time, so we can start to look at your potential options for your starting lineup. But the true start-sit help will come over the weekend. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll take care of your start-sit questions. But that will do it for me this evening. Appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody.